Hello, my name's Rena Ali. I'm the Services Manager for CDRS. I'm here with my colleagues Jane McKitchen, who is a Project Leader, and Emma Little, who's a Coordinator at CDRS. We are not experts in autism or autism diagnosis, but we're here to talk about a service model that you or your families might be interested to hear about. It's called the Compassionate Distress Response Service. Just to put CDRS into some context, pre-COVID, there was quite a lengthy consultation, a review, in which they found that there was quite a high level of distress presentation to emergency services, first responders, and GPs. The review also highlighted that many of these individuals do not necessarily need a clinical, medical, or statutory intervention in their moment of distress. What they really need is compassionate listening, an opportunity to be able to validate their feelings and their emotions, and time to say kind of how they're feeling. Next slide, please. Sorry, what do I do? I'll just kind of like... So in Glasgow, we set up 3 distress response services. One distress response pathway was for out of hours, for emergency services and first responders. And that's an evening service, and it operates 7 nights a week. The other pathway in Glasgow is for GPs to refer into during the day. And we also have a third pathway for young people to be referred into during the day. So that's the 3 pathways in Glasgow. During this time, in 2022, we started having some conversations with our colleagues in East Dunbartonshire, HSCP and CAMS, and it was about the number of young people being referred to CAMS from East Dunbartonshire. And the same conversation, many of the individuals, some young people didn't necessarily need to be referred to CAMS. It wasn't, might not have been the most appropriate referral. And also there's kind of long waiting lists. So what we decided to do was to develop, to run a test of change. It used to be called a pilot, a test of change, proof of concept. So we decided to run this proof of concept in East Dunbartonshire for 16 to 25-year-olds and 26 if young people are care experienced. What I've got in the next slide is, I think it's a little sound bite that we have, and that will just summarise what I'm going to talk to you in a little bit more detail. So if you can have a look at the sound bite, please.
If you work with young people, aged 16 to 25, you'll see a lot of them in distress. Not everyone in distress needs a mental health assessment. They just need someone to talk to. The Compassionate Distress Response Service can help. Call us to make a referral. We'll contact the young person within 24 hours. We'll support them in their moment of distress. We'll arrange follow-up calls to check back to see how they're doing. If needed, we can offer some coping strategies and signpost them to other support. Referrals accepted from secondary schools, CAMS, further education, higher education, GPs and their multidisciplinary teams, youth health service, social work, first responders, emergency services, mental health assessment units. Compassionate Distress Response Service. Care, listen, connect.
The East Dunbartonshire proof of concept. So we're in our second year, and we'll take referrals from education, that's secondary schools, further education, higher education, GPs and the multidisciplinary teams, CAMS, social work, children and families, police, ambulance, and third sector and community organisations have also been added to that pathway. It is a profession-to-profession referral only, so you would need to contact your service provider or your GP to make a referral. The opening times for this service is 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. and it's Monday to Fridays. The reason that we have a profession-to-profession referral process is just to manage risk and so that we can get some background information about the individual as well. And because there's a 24-hour response time, it's just really to manage. If we had kind of opened the calls to, a phone, kind of an open phone call, we wouldn't be able to manage the response time. So the referral criteria is for young people aged 16 to 25, 26 if they're care experienced. The young person must be aware of the referral and has consented to receiving support from CDRS. The young person should not be in immediate risk. And we have a lack of conditionality, so it doesn't matter if the young person has another diagnosis or there's another situation that they're dealing with. We will still, but there's no kind of barriers to CDRS. The only kind of criteria really is that they have capacity to engage, they're not at risk, and they have consented. And I would say again, it's about, this is not a non-clinical intervention. So if you feel the young person needs a clinical intervention, then it's not for CDRS. CDRS is non-medical, non-clinical, and non-counselling. It is a listening service. I don't want to say just, but it manages to do quite a lot within it being that type of support. Next slide, please. The key features of CDRS is that we'll respond within 24 hours of the referral being made. CDRS provides ongoing support, checking in with the individual for up to a month, sometimes longer in certain circumstances. CDRS provides compassionate listening, coping strategies, including safety planning and suggestions for onward signposting if that's needed. We manage risks safely, and we can provide three-way interpreting and adapting of resources if needed. We have a skilled workforce. We're very lucky to be linked in with GAMH's Training and Development Department. Our staff have had a range of training, and autism awareness being one of those. Next slide, please. We don't have much data for East Dunbartonshire, but with the data that we do have, what we're seeing, I don't know whether you can see that slide clearly, but what we have seen is anxiety and stress. Put my glasses on. Anxiety and stress seem to be the main reasons for distress presentation, amongst other things like trauma, bereavement loss, family issues, interpersonal relationship issues, self-harm, and suicide ideation. But overwhelmingly, anxiety and stress are the most common reason for distress presentation. Next slide, please. We also carried out a deep-level evaluation of the CDRS model. People who used the service said they felt heard with compassion. They said that we helped them through a difficult time, and people said that they liked the techniques and tools that we suggested to them. Referrals also said they want people to be supported as a one-off or while waiting for another service. Some other feedback, next slide, please. Some other feedback that we have, it was good to have someone who listened and understood. It felt like they had my back. They also called when they said they were going to call. Another quote, the minute I heard her voice, I felt calm and I knew I could talk to that person. Next slide, please. We have an example of someone who was referred to the East Dunbartonshire CDRS Young Person Service, a young person with an existing autism diagnosis. So I'll just read that out. I know it's not very, it's probably not clear to read, but I'll just read it out. A young female was referred into CDRS due to ongoing issues with low mood and panic attacks. The individual was previously known to CAMHS, had an existing diagnosis of autism and learning disability. The individual struggled with feelings of increased anxiety due to bullying. The individual was provided with a safe space to discuss current stressors in relation to school and bullying. Initial calls were challenging as the individual would only engage when prompted to do so by her mother, who was present for calls. With continued support and reassurance, the individual was able to engage with the service on her own without her mother. We were then able to establish that she used self-harm as a coping strategy to manage her feelings when she was feeling overwhelmed when at school. The CDRS responder created a soothing box with a variety of sensory items, for example, fidget toys, to help manage urges to self-harm. The individual found this to be an effective distraction and began adding her own objects to the soothing box, which she found very helpful. We discussed managing emotions in a more positive fashion, as she would retaliate or engage in unhelpful coping strategies when bullied in the past. CDRS responder also encouraged journaling. The individual implemented journaling into her daily routine, which helped when being unable to express her feelings verbally. Next slide. Upon discharge from CDRS, it was clear just how much progress young people can make if they're simply listened to and provided with a certain level of reassurance. One major change in this case was the individual now spoke freely without her mother present and was able to lead some conversation with the responder. The individual also reported positive changes in her mood and had effectively incorporated the soothing box into her daily life, stating that she hadn't self-harmed since using this. She reported being able to manage conflicts more effectively and confidently than previously. This was demonstrated in a conversation about bullying when the individual stated, "Words only have meaning if I let them." The presentation is really to highlight the model of support that we have for young people in East Dunbartonshire. The model focuses on compassionate engagement with individuals. The case study provides examples of how our model can be adapted to meet the unique needs of individuals, including young people with autism. My colleagues and myself will be present later on for the Q&A sessions if you've got any more questions about the service. And just kind of like another thing, I know this kind of like the theme was mental health as well. CDRS has been placed within Glasgow Association for Mental Health, and GAMH has been providing mental health support to the communities of Glasgow, to the communities and carers of Glasgow for over 40 years. So we do have a wealth of experience that we're coming with, and to be able to adapt kind of like the CDRS model within our organisation. So thank you very much, and we'll be able to take some questions. I'm happy to take any if you want just now, but if you want later on. Thank you. Thank you.